Well, now that we've got a few animation cycles done, let's go ahead and begin preparing the scene to take it into Unity. Now, of course, we can create more animations for our character here. We can create as many as we want, but for now I think these three are good examples to take into Unity. So let's go back to the default view here. I'm going to go to the default scene view. And there are a couple things we need to do. First of all, I think what I should probably do is, let me go to pose mode here and just select everything so we can see our keyframes. I think what I should probably do is move everything up one frame. And that's so that this default pose right here is seen by Unity at frame 1, or at least within the frame range. The way I have it now, I'm not sure that it's going to see it at frame 0. In other words, we'd begin at frame 1 and it would have a difficult time figuring out what the default pose is. So what I think I should do is take everything up one frame. So I will go back to the animation view. I'll go to the dope sheet up here and select everything. And in fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to press Control up arrow, and so we can see the whole thing here. And this is all the keyframes for our character. And I'm just going to move the cursor up to frame 1 so I can see what I'm doing, and I'll just hit G and slide it over. So I get my default pose on frame 1. I'll press Control up arrow again to go back. So now, if we take a look here, I'm going to zoom out. And actually what I'll do is I'll go from frame 1 to, what do I have here, 110 maybe? Let's try that. And I'll press the home key on the keyboard to zoom into the entirety of the timeline there, or the frame range. So you can see on frame 1 I've got my default pose, and then it goes straight into the run. I have the idle here, but take a look at the idle. Look at what's happening here. What happened? So if I play this, here let me deselect all this. If I play this, watch what happens. That's not good. See how he's sliding there? Okay, so I need to work on that. Let's take a look at where those frames are. It looks like it begins here at frame 23 now and goes out through frame 82. So the reason why I get those strange sliding effects is because I don't have these keyframes anchored here on this frame. It goes slowly from here all the way to the default pose again over here. So what I need to do is just copy these and move them over to hold the pose for these particular controls. So this is the root and the torso. So I can take these and Shift D and move them on over. These as well here. I've got these that don't have an anchor here at the end. So just Shift D and move these over. And then it looks like I've got a large group down here that hasn't been anchored at the end as well. So I'm just going to hit the B key and border select all of these. And now I can press Shift D and move them all the way down. And there we go. So we've anchored these poses for these controls, or this position I should say, for these controls at the end of the cycle as well. So I'm going to press Control up arrow and let's go back. Where did I begin? 23, was that right? There he goes. That looks a little bit better. Now he goes into his jump pose, but there's the idle, the jump, and the run. Okay, so that looks a bit better. Now that we've got our keyframes set up, I need to figure out what the frame ranges are, because we're going to need that information in Unity to be able to break these animations out into their individual components, into their individual clips. We're going to need to know what the frame ranges are here in Blender and type that into Unity so it knows how to split out the animations. All right, so it looks to me like it's going to be 2 to 13 here, and then it looks like it's going to be 23 to 82, and also we've got our pose out here at 101. And for the jump pose, I'm actually going to need more than one frame. So I'm going to select all of these frames and duplicate them, and I'll move them up to frame 105 here. So I have 101 to 105 for my jump animation. All right, let me hit Control up arrow to go back. So now we know what our frame ranges are going to be. That's good. I'm going to go back to my default view here. All right, so now what we need to do is bake our animation. We've got a lot of constraints and controls that that Unity is just not going to understand. But what we need to do is bake the animation out. So there's a keyframe here for every frame. So Unity doesn't have to rely on Blender's constraints and tweening between the keyframes. It'll be able to understand what's going on a lot better if it has a keyframe for every single frame here. So how do we do that? Well, all you got to do is go into pose mode, select everything with the A key so that all the controls are selected, and then come over here to pose, go to animation, and go to bake action. There we go. So now we've got this little window. So we can choose to bake the data from pose or object. I'm going to choose pose since we're in pose mode here. And the frame range from 1 to 110. And we want a keyframe on every frame. So I'll just click OK. And there we go. You can see you've got a keyframe now on every single frame. And if I scroll through, he's there doing all his animations and everything, and that's great. So now that we've got a keyframe on every frame, and you'll notice that there's not one beyond here because it doesn't change any, and that's fine. All right, so the next thing we need to do is kind of clear out the scene. We've got a lot of junk over here, things that we just don't need now that we've baked the animation out. All this we can get rid of. And there's a lot here. If you look through the outliner, these WGT widget objects are filling the outliner. We need to select all of these and just delete them. So you can come in here and select one and press Shift and select another. And for most programs, if I came down here and pressed Shift and clicked, it would select everything in between here. But Blender doesn't do that. No, indeed, it does not do that. So what you can do to select everything is just to use the border select tool. So I'll press the B key and click and drag, and that will select everything there. And then I can scroll down and hit B and click and drag, and that'll select all of those. So if your screen is bigger and you can see more of the outliner than I can here, you can select more all at once. So I'm just going to go through and select everything here with the B key and the border select. There we go. So I've just selected all the WGT objects, and I'll just right click and choose delete. And there we go. Now if we hit play, we should see that it didn't affect really anything. So that's good. Everything's still there. The next thing we don't need is this meta rig. This is the rig that was originally created that we used to place the joints of our rig. We then generated the actual rig from that. So we don't need this either. So we can right click and delete that. So now all we're left is just the rig. And let's just make sure once again it plays. Everything's there. That's good. All of our keyframes are there. All right, so that's good. So let's go ahead and save the scene. So we are ready to take our character into Unity, and in the next video, that is exactly what we'll do. So see you then.